Welcome to Coffee Talk. This is May 20th, 2014, and we are proud to welcome Connie Fisher of Mental Health America of Eastern Missouri, talking about care of self, care of others. Thank you very much, Connie.
Okay, just let me tell you a little bit about Mental Health America. There's some things that are helpful on our website. This is our mission to promote mental health and to improve the care and treatment of persons with mental illness through advocacy, education, and service. This is the education component, so we do 5 wellness seminars. The advocacy is that we advocate for the mentally ill by helping to get laws passed that are going to affect the mentally ill, or right now we're working on the Medicaid Plus bill unsuccessfully, but we're still working on it. And then also trying to change the stigma and just start the conversation about mental illness, and looking at the stigma of mental illness. We don't talk about it like we should. We were, talking about the media image of the mentally ill is of a person who shoots up a school or a theater, and that's just not typical. That's less than 5% of the mentally ill who are violent. In fact, more normal people are likely to be violent than mentally ill people, and mentally ill people are more likely to become victims of crime than to commit crimes. A couple of things on our service that we do. One is the REP Payee program. This is a program for people who are mentally ill, who are on disability, and 18 or older, want to remain independent but aren't able to be fiscally responsible. We have their disability check deposited with us, and we pay their bills, basically, and so they can stay independent. And they get a stipend depending on what their bills are. And we have about 125 people in that program. We also have a peer-to-peer support group. This is a support group for the mentally ill, run by the mentally ill. So we train somebody who's mentally ill to run the group. It's a 10-week program. They get a little salary for that, and we have those all over the state. Also on our website are places to get medications for free. So if somebody's really struggling with paying for any medications, there's a whole list of companies and organizations that will help with medications. And then you can also search for support groups by type, and that's kind of helpful. And so that's kind of generally about Mental Health America. So we're going to talk about care of self.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
How do you define mentally ill? How is that defined?
So any diagnosed mental illness, depression, schizophrenia, bipolar, anxiety disorder, those kinds of things.
Okay. Clinically diagnosed.
Yeah, clinical diagnosis. So when we talk about parenting, just parenting in general is stressful, depending on the age of your children and your skill level. What specifically do you think are the stressors of a parent of a Down syndrome child?
I think parents with children with Down syndrome have stressors because sometimes communication is more difficult. There are behaviors that are challenging, maybe difficult to understand, additional health concerns, those sorts of things.
All right, so this is generally what most parents would deal with stress, in addition to what somebody with a Down syndrome child would be dealing with. These are the symptoms of it. So overwhelmed is a common symptom of parental stress. Impatience. They spilled their milk yesterday and it was no big deal. Today you aren't taking very good care of yourself and it's a big deal. Okay. Resentful of the child. Don't want to take care of anybody anymore. Start to blame more, and usually it's the child they're blaming. Start to feel apathy, like they just don't care. Some sadness. Difficulty concentrating, which is a typical symptom of stress, and then mentally and physically tired, also typical symptoms of any stress. The causes of parental stress are lack of sleep, lack of exercise, not eating correctly, money worries. Recently, the American Psychological Association said that financial worries is the #1 stressor now in the United States. Life, work, and family balance, what we were talking about earlier, and lack of a partner to share the responsibilities. When somebody is doing single parenting, it becomes twice the burden. There are benefits to parenting, obviously, right? So that's why we do it. That's why we have more than one. Joys and laughter of our children, definitely a benefit. Personal growth involved in parenting a child. You have to grow to be a parent. There's no way around that. Respect for our own parents for the job of parenting, because we now realize how hard it was once we start parenting. Love, obviously, and then the connection to the child.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a little bit of a narcissistic need to see yourself go on, you know, in your child. Parental compassion fatigue. Compassion fatigue is when someone who regularly deals with a very difficult parenting stress starts to feel that stress at the expense of their own self-care. They stop taking care of themselves. Also, compassion fatigue is a feeling of having nothing left to give, like you're all out. It's sometimes misdiagnosed as depression. And then the most caring individuals are most likely to develop some kind of compassion fatigue. So the more empathy and the more caring you are, the more likely you are to have some compassion fatigue, ironically. There's a myth of invincibility in parents. We think we can handle anything, and we really can sell ourselves short and also hurt ourselves by thinking this. We view stress as something to be overcome rather than reduced. Really a totally different way of looking at it than we should. Impose unrealistic expectations on ourselves. We expect perfection from ourselves even though we don't expect it from our children. We start doing more to offset the guilt and shame of not being able to do enough. So we do more, which is again counterintuitive. We push ourselves to the limit without knowing or clearly identifying the nature of our limitations. We don't realize, oh, this is where I gotta stop. We just keep going. We avoid asking for help, and this is particularly a problem for women. Women think they have to do it all and forget to ask for help. And we're perfectionistic, which there's no such thing. So it's a setup to fail, right? Here's what we know versus what we do. So being a parent can be very stressful. We know that. We know a balanced life enhances our personal well-being, and we can do that. We were talking about balance is different at different ages. And it's beneficial to begin our parenting with self-care. If we started off parenting with self-care, we would all be better off. But what we do is we put others' needs before our own at our expense. Now, I understand as a parent you sometimes have to put your children's needs before your own, but at some point yours need to come into play or it doesn't work. We overextend ourselves. We keep saying yes to everything that people ask us to do. Yes, bring 24 cupcakes to the soccer game. We don't even think about it. We just say yes, and then we're like overextended. We view sleep as expendable. Well, I'll catch up tomorrow. Sleep is so important. Sleep is lack of sleep is one of the #1 symptoms of mental illness, right? It's tied to bipolar disorder. It's tied to depression. It's tied to anxiety disorder, and it's tied to ADHD. Okay, so sleep is pretty important.
Now, can sleep obviously sleep exacerbates those conditions.
Right.
Can it cause anxiety, or?
It could if you weren't sleeping well enough.
Yeah.
It's probably not going to cause bipolar. It's more of a symptom of
Right,
bipolar.
right.
It's not going to cause depression. It's a symptom of depression. But sleep is also your save button on your computer. So if you learn something today and you don't get good sleep tonight, it's not there to recall. It's also the way your body heals itself. So when you don't get enough sleep, you get into trouble. Good sleep. We all plan to start exercising tomorrow. I love this affirmation I was reading about. It says, yesterday I said today. Right? And then engage in unhealthy coping strategies. That would be like any compulsion, overeating, working, overspending, whatever compulsion the person might have. So what we know and what we do are two different things. So I love this cartoon. And pretty soon the guy just walks away. He's at it. And he's meditating. That's good for you. So why should you take care of yourself? Well, let's do this emotional bank account. So in your packet, here's an emotional bank account. It looks like a bunch of lines. So it looks like this. And I'm going to show you what happens when you don't take care of yourself. I'm going to give you a horrible week. And I know you've had weeks like this. Okay, so in your bank account, I've already deposited things I think you need to be mentally healthy, and included in there is anger. A lot of people are surprised by that. You do need all 4 of the primary feelings: mad, sad, glad, and scared. If you don't have those feelings, you don't know when you should be taking care of yourself, right? So I'm going to go through this week with you, and as I ask you to take things out of your account, I want you to draw a line through them, okay? And this is based on the idea that when you're on a plane and the oxygen mask drops and the child is sitting next to you, who are you supposed to put it on first?
Yourself.
Yourself. Why?
So you can care for that person.
Yeah, you can't, a dead parent can't save a
Yeah.
child, right? And it's the same kind of philosophy. A parent who's not taking care of themselves cannot take care of another person. You'll get exhausted. So here we go. The person you're caring for wants information, reassurance, and support about a problem she's having. That's good you have those to give, so take those out of your account. Information, reassurance, and support. Another person you care about complains about the problems they're having with the health insurance company and needs you to get angry and scared for them. So take those out of your account, anger and scare. Then your children want to go to a show, you know, one of those shows that has no redeeming value whatsoever. But you go anyway, so take fun, time, and glad out. Your significant other wants you to take his or her car in for repairs, which takes away your exercise time. Take that out of your account. Your brother feels insecure today and wants your love. Take that out of your account. You worry about him and can't relax, so take relaxation out of your account. And this happens to me every week. The $40 you started out with in your wallet is gone. You don't know where it went. So take out money and setting healthy limits. Your dog gets sick and keeps you up all night, depriving you of sleep, so take that out of your account. How are you starting to feel?
Really sad.
Sad, okay. Anything else?
Oh. Well, my dreams and my hopes are kind of faded.
Yeah, okay. It's not done yet. Your grandfather dies and this makes you sad.
no.
Take that out of your account. Your immune system drops due to all this stress and you get pneumonia, so take health out of your account. Your coworker comes to you and wants you to tell her what you think about her problem when she has her own good brain and won't use it, so take out the ability to think. You've had these hopes for a great vacation, but you have no energy left, so take out your hopes and dreams. And your family comes to you for time to get together for a family reunion, but you have no time left in your bank account, so take out family. So now you're empty. Now, really bad care of self takers will keep going. How many times have you kept going when your tank's on empty? Right? A little bit longer, a little bit longer. And when we get beyond our bank account, what happens? Literally, what happens?
You're overdrawn.
You're overdrawn, and then what do they do to you?
Penalize you.
They penalize you. They charge you interest, right? Well, the interest you pay when you overdraw this way is more your mental health, your physical health. Everything starts to go, and your patience and your ability to tolerate things starts to go. So we have to really watch this, you know. Obviously, some of the things we took out also would have put things in, like loving somebody usually gives it back to you. So I'm aware of that, but I wanted to give you the picture. And this is not, you know, you've had weeks like this, right? Okay, so you can have a week like that and really very quickly deplete. The worse your life is, the better you need to take care of yourself. The worse your life is, the better, the more nice things you ought to be doing for yourself every now and then. So, I'd like you to somewhere on that paper write a deposit, something. A deposit is anything that gives you energy, and a withdrawal is anything that takes your energy away. So think of one thing that gives you energy and write that on your paper, something you'd be willing to do weekly or monthly for yourself. That could be as simple as listening to your favorite music, or more complicated, like getting a massage. And a lot of times when we're caregivers, we don't even know what we want. It's that bad. We've gone so long without knowing what we want. We have to sit down and make a list because we don't know. So what are you going to do?
Exercise.
Okay. Exercise is the stress buster. It will help you burn off anxiety. will also make you feel better and raise your serotonin levels and boost your mood a little bit. And what are you going to do?
Well, I did this the other day. Got off work a little early, so I sat outside. I just enjoyed the sun, drank a glass of wine, and just played with the cats.
Yeah,
Just great.
be still, right? Yeah, that's really nice. I like my porch swing. I'm the same way. I like to just sit on my porch swing and relax, yes. Anything that puts your energy back in, you need to be doing on a regular basis. And how long did that take? Half an hour? Not very long, right?
Yeah.
It's easy to put it back in. We just aren't. We tell ourselves we don't have time. So some tips and suggestions are make regular deposits as often as you can. There will be days and weeks, obviously, where that's going to be more difficult, but I understand that. When you can't prioritize your time, prioritize your tasks. And this is particularly helpful. When you have a lot of tasks to do, it's usually better if you do the one you like the least first. And the reason is because the rest of the day is yours. So if you're at work and you hate making phone calls, make all your phone calls in the morning, you're done, the rest of the day is yours. If you don't, those phone calls are going to nag you all day and irritate anything good you're doing for yourself. You don't have to make yourself more important than other people, but you do have to be just as important as other people. Okay, so that's really key. So optimal wellness, this is where you're promoting yourself to flourish personally. It helps in lots of ways. It builds resilience, that ability to bounce back from difficult times and change. And I'm assuming with Down syndrome children, you're going through a lot of change periodically, right? In fact, your life may be very unpredictable at times. You never know what is going to key somebody off, or it's going to be smooth or it's not going to be smooth, right? And all parenting is actually like that. Promotes psychological and physical health. Physical health, because the more stressed you are, the more likely you are to get ill. Literally, it drops your immune system when you're stressed for too long. Increases the capacity for empathy. Improves your immune system, reduces potential for burnout, models healthy behavior for your children. So if you're taking care of yourself, what you're modeling is it's okay to take care of yourself. In fact, it's important. And then self-esteem grows out of the self-care process. So when you don't take care of yourself, you're basically saying you're not important. When you do, you're saying you are. So it's going to help your self-esteem. We have to learn to let go of guilt and anxiety. We get guilty about not being perfect parents in particular, or having perfect children, which of course is impossible. And so when we set ourselves up to be perfect, we will fail. So we want to let that go. We want to forgive our mistakes and learn from them. If you're learning from them, you're doing fine. If you're human, you're going to make mistakes. So let go of the guilt about that. We need about this much guilt to not be sociopaths. Okay? We don't need rooms full of guilt to keep us in control, right? Letting go of anxiety can be another thing. Worrying, constantly worrying, is not good for your health or your body. So you want to remember to breathe. Almost everybody with an anxiety disorder shallow chest breathes. That means they breathe from here up. You say take a deep breath, they go, and your belly should go out when you take a deep breath. So if you've ever practiced yoga or meditation, and or you wake up in the morning and be observant of your breathing, you'll notice your belly's going up and down. So you want to fill the bottom of your lungs, because if you don't, then the brain doesn't get enough oxygen. When it doesn't get enough oxygen, it thinks it's anxious. Get help if you need it. And get help from who you need it from, right? If somebody has a Down syndrome child, this is a good place to call. If you have a legal problem, you call a lawyer. If you have a mechanical problem, you call a mechanic. Don't try to take care of everything yourself. And then seek out advice from books and mentors. And I think parenting is really a good place to have a mentor. I had a friend who was my mother mentor, and she had ideas and solutions to things that weren't in any books I read, just because she had been a parent before. So she had some skills that were helpful. Some other suggestions for self-care is take some time for yourself when your child is sleeping or in the care of others. This is really key. A lot of times when they're sleeping or in the care of others, we clean. We do some other chore instead of just taking that time for ourselves. Trade childcare with another parent so that you're getting a break. Take your child to a park to play so that you have some time down. And particularly, it's really easy to do more for a child than you should, because it's easier, right? So if your child is capable of making a peanut butter sandwich, but it's going to take them 15 minutes, and you could do it in 5, yes, it would be easier for you to do it, but when you do it, their self-esteem doesn't, they feel good about you, not themselves, number 1. And when they do it, they feel good about themselves. And number 2, you've got 15 minutes to sit down. So use that time for a win-win for both people. Journaling is really helpful when you're going through a difficult time. It gives you the perspective from a distance to look at what you're thinking and go, oh, that's not making sense, or that is making sense. It puts your feelings down, so when you can't sleep, it's a really good tool. You write down everything you're feeling. You tell yourself it's written down, and now you can go to sleep. In the morning, you can pick it back up. Okay. Exercise we talked about, getting enough sleep we talked about, and then eating well. When you know when you're not eating well, you don't feel as good, right? Oh, I want that, hot fudge sundae. Ooh, sorry I did hot fudge sundae. That kind of feeling. Okay, also in your packet is a Caregiver's Bill of Rights. Now this was written for caring for the elderly, but it really kind of applies. Most of it still applies. And it's nice to think of this as your right, okay? So I have the right to take care of myself. This is not an act of selfishness. It will give me the capability of taking better care of my loved one. I have the right to seek help from others. Even though my loved ones may object, I recognize the limits of my own endurance and strength. I have the right to maintain facets of my own life which do not include the person I care for, just as I would if he or she were healthy. I know that I do everything that I reasonably can for this person, and I have the right to do some things just for myself. I have the right to get angry, be depressed, and express other difficult feelings occasionally. I have the right to reject any attempts by my loved one, either conscious or unconscious, to manipulate me through guilt or depression. I have the right to receive consideration, affection, forgiveness, and acceptance for what I do from my loved ones, for as long as I offer these qualities in return. I have the right to take pride in what I'm accomplishing and to applaud the courage it sometimes has taken to meet the needs of my loved one. I have the right to protect my individuality and my right to make a life for myself that will sustain me in the time when my loved one no longer needs my full-time help. I have the right to expect and demand that as new strides are made in finding resources to aid physically and mentally impaired persons in our country, similar strides will be made towards aiding and supporting caregivers. I like that. It's really nice. And that was written by Jill Horan. She's the author of Helping on an Aging Loved One. So it really was written for caring for the elderly, but it really applies to almost anyone.
It does.
Does that fit for you guys?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So I looked this picture. Because I take care of myself first, I can take care of others even better. It's great. Now, why can't we been like that anymore? Physical care. So let's just look at the different areas of care for ourselves. So first you want to listen to your body. Plan your schedule and use time management skills. That's part of taking care of your physical health. If you're just getting exhausted, it's time to stop. Keep up with dentist and doctor's appointments. People who caregive don't go to the dentist and doctor for themselves, but they'll make sure the person they're caring for gets there. Really. Take restroom breaks. People who are caregivers wait till they can't hold it anymore before they go to the restroom.
Check.
That's silly, right? And yet we'll make sure those people we're taking care of get there, right? So we have to just take those. That's really reasonable, and that's symptoms of compassion fatigue. Exercise we talked about. Get enough sleep we talked about. Emotional self-care is find something to laugh about. That is so healing. Talk with someone every day. Probably is someone you should talk to about just how you're doing. Take a break every day. This is our quiet time. This is our 15-minute break. This is my downtime. Listen to music. Do either of you use music as a way to kind of boost your mood or take care of yourselves, calm yourselves down?
I would, but not really.
Okay. Be realistic about the person's abilities. So my father-in-law was taking care of my mother-in-law when she was diagnosed with a Lou Gehrig's type disease, which was a muscular degenerative disease, right? And he kept trying to get her to walk. And finally I said, what part of degenerative don't you get? Because he was stressing her, trying to get her to walk, and she was not going to walk. In fact, she was going to get worse. And finally he accepted that, and then her stress level could drop. And so could his, because they weren't trying to do something the person couldn't do. Now this is really a tricky one, because particularly with Down syndrome, we can be undermining somebody's abilities. Meaning they really could do something and we're kind of undermining it, so we have to really watch that, right?
Yeah, that is tricky.
Yeah. you have to kind of think, let's see if you can do it first before I find out you can. Accept your feelings. Again, sometimes you're going to have all kinds of feelings about this. Sometimes you're going to be the most patient saint in the world, and other days you're going to be like, this is on my last nerve and I need to get out of here. So it's okay that you have those feelings. You're human. Learn relaxation techniques. Do either of you do those? What do you do?
Well, I actually do deep breathing.
Great.
And then at different times, the progressive muscle relaxation.
That's really nice, yeah.
There's even like the forgiveness exercise too, where you go to a relaxing place.
You do anything for?
I try to do yoga when I can.
Yeah, yoga's really nice because it's both stretching and relaxing, and usually a little bit of guided imagery at the end also. So in meditation, all kinds of data to back up increased mood, lower depression levels, lower heart rate, lower breathing rate, just so much. And also centering prayer is where you're doing more listening than talking in the prayer. That has the same good effects as meditation. Attend some kind of support group. I assume you have some support groups here.
Yeah, we have community groups.
Yeah, community groups. Seek professional help if you need it. And you would know you need professional help if you have a feeling that won't stop. You're angry, scared, sad all the time, and you can't get it to stop. You want a neutral party to just hear you. That's all you want. Or you're starting to not function. You're not sleeping, you're not showering, you're not getting out of the house, you can't get out of bed, those kinds of things. Also part of emotional self-care is advocating for your rights. You have some rights. I have the right to go to bed. I have the right to eat. I have the right to quiet occasionally. Say no to prevent overcommitting. I always tell people no is a complete sentence. You do not have to explain it. Will you bring those 24 cupcakes to the soccer team? No. That's it, okay?
That's so hard.
And remember, when you're saying no to something, you're saying yes to what you want to do, because there's only so much time, right? So if I say no to this, that means I can say yes to that. And usually that is more valuable to you, and more important to you. Stop the all or nothing kind of thinking and be a little more flexible. This is where we believe it's always or never, and it's almost never true that always is. Those words just aren't often very true. Quit blaming and shaming yourself and others. Shame is telling yourself you're bad. It's different than guilt. Stop taking things personally. This is a hard one. So sometimes, somebody will get mad at you because they're frustrated and it's really not about you, right? And if you can know that, you can kind of be like Teflon and just let it slide off. You know, my husband used to, when he'd come home from bad traffic, it'd be like, tell me how bad it was, and I'd be like, we have a code now that says, I didn't do it. I didn't do it means you've been doing that for about 20 minutes now and I'm tired of it. And he would go, oh yeah, okay, I gotta let that go. Okay. Let go of the illusion of control. You're the only one person you have control over. You can provide consequences for children. You can provide incentives for children, but you really can't control them if they don't want to be, right? And you know that probably better than anyone. There's a point where they won't do what you want them to do. Now, most of the time, they want to please you, and so they'll come around, and also they don't like consequences. And those are real things in the real world, right? If I don't show up to work on time, I don't get paid. There's a consequence for that. So that's part of living in the world. But we believe sometimes that we have control over everything, including the traffic. We think if we get closer to that guy in front of us and yell at him, he'll move. And he doesn't, right? So you practice acceptance with this one. This is accepting that it is what it is. Acceptance does not mean you like it. It means it's a fact. And then once you know what it is, you can decide how you respond. And then you'll feel much more in control when you do that. And then learn from and forgive your mistakes. That's what they're there for. We fail our way to success. All of us do that, okay? I love the weightlifters' terminology for success is lifting a weight to failure. In other words, if you've lifted as long as you can and as big as you can, you've succeeded. I love that idea, because that means that I'm always challenging myself and pushing myself, and that means I'm going to make mistakes if I'm doing that. If I'm not, I'm really staying in the status quo and not challenging myself, not growing. Some spiritual self-care, do some simple things. We've kind of talked about some of these. Read. Sometimes daily readers are really helpful. Meditate. Affirmations. Now, affirmations only work if you believe them. So me saying I'm good at computers, I'm good at computers, I'm good at computers is not going to work because I don't believe it. Okay. But if I put it in a process form, I can believe it. If I say I'm learning to be better at computers, I can believe that. So sometimes just putting an affirmation in a process form is helpful. And it is changing your thinking from negative thinking to positive thinking, so it can be helpful in that way. Take advantage of what's in your neighborhood, parks, shopping, the zoo, the library. You know, there's so many free things in St. Louis to do, and we forget to take advantage of those. I realized the other day, I haven't been to the library in probably 10 years. I can go to the library. It's down the street, right? Establish a daily routine. I'm sure you know about this, right? The more routine you have, the safer and comfortable everybody is, right? And because we can count on that. We know what we're going to do. And it makes us feel much better. Humor. Do you guys use humor to cope? Yeah. Humor is real common. A lot of times you're laughing at things that aren't funny, but that's how you're getting through. And a lot of times you're laughing at yourself, and it's not funny. I tell this story about my mom was going through chemo with lung cancer, and she wanted to go out to lunch every day, and she wanted to laugh. That was her goal. One day I couldn't take her out to lunch, so a friend of ours who has rheumatoid arthritis took her out to lunch. Well, neither my mom or this friend could get off a curb without assistance. So I get a call from them, and they're laughing hysterically. I'm like, "What's the matter?" Like, they said, "We're at a curb and we can't get down." And I'm like, "This is not funny." And then I'm like, "No, this is funny," you know. And that's what I mean. We're laughing to cope, and it's kind of sad that they can't get off the curb, but it's also really funny that they think, you know. And they were laughing so hard they were crying. So yeah, it's that kind of release that we need a lot of times when we're going through difficult times. We talked about asking for help. Develop a ritual to leave work at the door when you leave. This is really helpful. A lot of us take work home. It's better if you can, like when you shut the door of the workplace, that means you left. Some people it's turning their computer off. It's just, some people it's shutting their car door. If you just have a ritual that says, okay, I'm done with work, and I call that owning your life. That means this is my life, this is my work, you know, and owning that. Because work can blend into your life very easily, especially when you're doing this kind of work. Relationship self-care. So you want to reevaluate unhealthy relationships. Are you having relationships with people that are really harming you in some way? And do you need to continue that? Don't assume responsibility for others and their problems. And this is, you know, I know you have to do that with your Down syndrome children, but do you really have to do that with everyone else? No, but it's kind of natural for you. Stay socially involved with friends and family. A lot of people who are caregivers stop their social connections. It's like the worst thing you can do. People who are socially connected to people who make them feel better live longer healthier, and live longer happier. If you're going to live longer, might as well be happy and healthy. And it has to be people that make you feel good, not people that make you feel bad. Okay? Rethink trying to please others. Explore being satisfied with yourself. One of my favorite affirmations is, what other people think of me is none of my business. Stop anticipating the needs of others. Sometimes we anticipate the needs before the person has even said anything yet, and that gets us more into caregiving than, and also doesn't allow the person to start taking charge of their own life and what they need. Stop tolerating behaviors you don't want to tolerate. You know, if somebody is constantly putting you down, stop. You don't have to tolerate that. Trust yourself. Understand that you can't fix another person's problems. That's really hard, right? You only have control over you. And then we talked about joining support group. Kind of repeating myself here. When you're doing healthy relationships, I just thought I'd talk a little bit about being in a relationship while you're a caregiver. And because your relationship is one of the things you have to take care of, or it'll just disintegrate. And I was telling Erin that the research I looked up on people with Down syndrome children actually shows that you have an advantage over other people in your relationships, in your marital relationships. You stay married longer, your divorce rate is lower, and having a Down syndrome child is seen as an asset in most marriages. So it's like really good stats compared to the rest of us. Okay. So some just things that are involved in a healthy relationship is respect for your partner, making time for your partner. If you're going to be in a relationship, you have to relate. So my husband and I have a date night every Friday. We've been married 38 years. Every Friday. If we have to do something on a Friday night that doesn't involve date night, then we have a date night Saturday. Okay. Express your love. A lot of people don't say they love someone. It's a big mistake. You have to share and communicate. You have to talk. We're going to talk about these 3 components to love in a minute: passion, intimacy, and commitment into healthy relationships. And then we have to be able to forgive people when they make mistakes and trust them. So this is Sternberg's triangular theory of love, and the reason I put it up here is it's a good way to figure out what's working in your relationship and what's not and what you need to add. That's why I like it. He says that if we have intimacy and commitment, we have companionate love. It's like a companion. Okay. If we have, and intimacy here is emotional intimacy, feeling close to somebody. If we have just commitment and nothing else, we have empty love. If we have passion, which is the physical attraction, and commitment, we have fatuous love. This is what we have when we first meet somebody that we're attracted to. And then romantic love is passion and intimacy, but no commitment. So you can see kind of we would go through stages as we're going through relationships. And then consummate love, the ideal, it has all 3 components, right? So you can kind of look at that and go, okay, we're doing pretty good on this one and this one, but we're not doing so good on that one. And so that's the one we need to increase. What can we do to increase that one? So it's just a nice little way to diagnose how you're doing. And you know, given any particular time in a marriage doesn't go like this and you stay there. You know, it kind of goes like this. This is going on in our lives, so, passion just dropped out. You know, this is going on in our lives, and we're talking all the time. So it just kind of depends on what's going on in your life in the long run. Questions about that?
So the ebb and flow is natural. It's just if you have all those a fair amount of the time
Yeah.
and realize it. And if there's one area,
Dipping, you need to take care of it.
yeah, big dip.
My husband's real big on, he's in maintenance, so he's real big on preventative maintenance, right? So if you change the oil in your car, your engine doesn't blow up on a regular basis. So regularly, somebody should be checking the relationship and seeing how it's doing. If something's not going well, then you need to be making a change there. And again, it'll change depending on the age of your children, what's going on in your life, whether you have a job or not, the stressors, somebody's ill, all those things.
So companion, it would be like a friendship. So you,
Yes.
you generally just like the person.
Yeah, this is
what they
more like a
bring.
friendship, and a lot of us start off with friendship. We usually have some physical attraction, or we probably wouldn't the person, other than a friend. Okay, and then we move into romantic love, and then we get into the commitment piece. Okay, so I just thought I'd bring in a couple little problem-solving things for relationships, or problem-solving in general. So when you're going to do problem-solving, first you want to define the problem from both people's point of view. This is the biggest mistake people make when they're solving a problem. You think you're talking about this, and then you realize you were talking about that. We used to do a couples retreat, and we had this couple who owned a farmhouse. And we said, we want you to say what you would say to each other, and then turn to the side and say what you're thinking. And she looks at him and says, they were talking about sidewalks for around their house. She says, I want stone sidewalks. And she goes, he's too cheap for this. He goes, I want concrete sidewalks. They're easier to maintain. He goes, all she wants to do is spend money. Now, if they never said what they were saying out here, and they only talked about the sidewalks, they wouldn't solve the problem, because the problem was money, not sidewalks. So a lot of times we think we're talking about this, but we're really talking about this. And if we don't get to this, we aren't solving the problem. Okay? In fact, you'll loop. You'll just go over it and over it and over it. And you think the one that gets louder wins, which isn't true. Understand why it's important to both people. Why is this so important to you? Because sometimes understanding why it's important to somebody makes it okay for you to compromise. Generate multiple solutions and pick the best one. Okay, so we could do this and we could do this. Usually the first 2 solutions you pick are the way your mother would solve the problem and the way your father would solve the problem. Those are usually polar opposites. And they're not usually good because they're too extreme. But if you moved in from those just a little bit of dad and a little bit of mom, you usually come up with a much better solution. And the more you move in, the more balanced the solution will look. And remember, both people have a mom and dad, so you got all that in there. Ask the partner if they're willing to participate in the solution. So you say, this is what I want to do, are you willing to do that? We forget to ask. Negotiate a compromise when you don't agree. So you're not willing to do that, what are you willing to do? Try the solution for 2 weeks. That's a good time period to see if it's working. If it's not working, you want to revisit it and kind of tweak it until you figure out how it will work, and that's going to make you both feel better. And then I also included this assertiveness formula because this is a very quick way to get out of an argument and solve a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very straight and no gaminess, no, you know, hidden agendas with this. It makes me angry and blank when you do blank. The reason we have this blank here is anger always has a date. It makes me angry and sad, angry and scared, angry and hurt when you do blank. It always has a date. If you just say angry, you get a defensive response, because most of us don't want people mad at us, okay? But if you say it makes me angry and scared, well, I don't need to defend against scare, so I'm going to hear you a little better, okay? When you do blank, now you're specifically saying what's bothering you. What I need from you is, most people forget to do this. They just say, I don't like this, and they don't say what they need. If you don't say what you need, the person's going to give you whatever they think you need, okay? If you do that, I'll feel or think, blank. How this will help us as a couple is, and are you willing to do that? If the answer is no, you negotiate. Let me give you an example. So let's say my husband runs late often and is not home on time, and it scares me because I worry. So I say it makes me angry and scared when you don't call when you're going to be late. What I need from you is for you to call. If you do that, I'll feel and think I'm important to you, and I'll feel safe. This will help us as a couple because I won't be mad at you when you come home. Are you willing to do that? Now let's say he says, no, I don't know when I'm going to have a meeting late, and so sometimes I can't predict that. So our negotiation might be, well then could you call me if you know you have a late meeting? And then I'll know that's probably where you are. Yes. Or we might negotiate, well could you text me in the meeting and tell me you're in a meeting and you'll be late? Or we could have a code word, right? When my son moved back in with us, we had a code text, not coming home, NCH. That's all he had to text. And I didn't worry about, oh, he's out and had an accident, yada, 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 right? Okay, so that just is a way to negotiate it really quickly. It's very straight. This will end an argument in about 5 minutes. And it's a basic assertiveness formula. It's also good at work. However, at work, you're not going to say angry. You're going to say it upsets me, okay? You're going to still ask for what you want. You're probably not going to use this one. And you're still going to negotiate. And then last slide, it's not selfish to love yourself, take care of yourself, and to make your happiness a priority. It's a necessity. Does that sound good? Questions?